Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day is going fantabulous. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, today I'm super excited to share with you a project for Altenew, and we are using a mini delight set. Every month Altenew comes out with a brand new set, and this one is called Smile Blooms. It's part of an Instagram hop, so if you guys are interested in this little stamp set, it is a combo, so it's the stamp and the die, but the Instagram hop has lots and lots of inspiration with this little mini delight. Smile Bloom stamp set. Love these smaller sets. I don't know about you guys. Today we are going to create a just because card, and I want to stamp this floral. It's a layering floral. I'm going to stamp it 5 times. So I put basically a 2-inch square in each corner of my Misty, at least the top left and bottom right. I'm going to make sure that there's enough room for the leaf. There's 2 leaves, one that has multiple leaves and then one's just a single leaf, but I want to make sure that they all fit on those little squares. It's just, I thought this, if I could flip my mouse pad, it'd make it super fast. So we are going to use some pinks for our floral today. I'm going to be using an ink cube set from Altenew. It's called the Floral 6 ink cube set. This light pink is so pretty. It's called Frosty Pink. I have to stamp it a few times because it is a pale pink, and I wanted my flower to be a little bit on the darker side. So I'm going to stamp it basically 3 or 4 times per flower. After I have my flower stamped, basically all I'm doing is taking my mouse pad and flipping it around. So we're going to corner. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the process 5 times with these little squares. Now after my floral base is down with that frosty pink, I'm going to go ahead and add my leaves. Just making sure I have enough room for die cutting. So I'm trying to get them as far away from the flower as I could. I should have maybe put them in a little bit larger piece of cardstock, but I was going through my scraps and I thought I could trim these down and it'll be easier. It worked out good. So these are my leaves. In the Floral 6, there is 2 colors of green. This is the light green. It's called Frayed Leaf. I'm going to stamp that and do a little bit of shading just by adding a little ink to the edge of my leaves. With my darker green ink, which is called Forest Glades. I'll do the same thing, just repeating the process, adding a little bit of highlighting. It's not too much, you know. Once it looks very bold here, but the colors do pull back, so it kind of ends up being a pretty soft leaf. I'm going to go ahead and just repeat the process, add my little squares in here, and stamp a few more leaves, and then we'll clean off our leaves and then go ahead and add our second layer to the flower. Now this second layer is just as pretty as the first, so if you wanted to create a smaller flower you could, but I'm going to go ahead and add a layer detail. The centers line up perfectly, so that's how you would align it, by just twisting it until that center lines up perfectly. So easy to do. Now I wanted a darker pink, so I'm going to use the Coral Berry ink. Stamp that in the center, and I think that looks just so pretty. We'll flip over our mouse pad and repeat this 4 more times, and then our flowers are basically done. All we have left is to do the center. Now I wasn't sure what color center to do. I think yellow would have been very pretty, but I wanted to go for something a little more bold, so I'm stamping with the black ink that came in the same little mini ink cube set. I thought black would be nice and bold for my card. Plus there's enough room on here to where I could add little polka dots and just make it a fun polka dotted center. So that's what we're going to do. Once all the centers are stamped, I'm going to go ahead, use the coordinating dies. Nice thing is they're already separated, so I'm just going to take them, line them up, and then die cut out my 5 flowers, my 5 individual leaves, and then my 5 multi leaf stems here. I think my die cutting took just as long as longer than my stamping. So okay, everything is die cut and I'm loving the colors. After I have my die cuts ready to go, I'm going to bring in a panel to put my flowers on. Now this panel measures 2 3/4 inches wide by 4 inches tall, And I need a place to put my sentiment, and I wanted it to be just as bold as my flower centers. So I have a 3/4 inch strip of cardstock. We're going to adhere it to the very top of our panel. And then I'll just trim off the excess that's overhanging. Once, now I am going to stamp my sentiment in that black area, but on the bottom area, I wanted to fill in that bottom area with florals. Now what I'm doing first is taking my flower, attaching the multi-leaf stem right behind my flower, and then I'm going to arrange it on my panel just so they're not hitting each other, but I have a little bit of green. But the flowers and these leaves are actually attached with my tape runner. And I did this on purpose because I want to end up popping these up. I'm not going to pop up my single individual leaves, but I am these ones. So I want to make sure that they're attached to the flower. Now I lightly tacked them down just so I wouldn't lose my placement, but I'm just attaching the leaf behind it and placing them. There are some open areas, and that's where the individual leaves are going to come in perfectly. Okay, some of them are overhanging. Actually, I think all of them, except for the middle one, are overhanging, and that's okay. We're going to trim around it. Now I'm going to just use my tape runner and adhere all of my 5 individual leaves, filling in the open area. And then we have a real pretty pink florally background. I'm going to take my scissors and trim off the excess. We'll just flip our panel around, and anything that's overhanging, you're going to trim off. And if you have some of those little extra pieces, keep them, because if you have some open spots on your panel, you can fill it in with those extra pieces. Now again, these aren't popped up yet. They're lightly tacked to the bottom of my panel, except for the individual leaves. Okay, that little piece just didn't want to go nowhere. Okay, for the top, I didn't want anything overhanging on that black cardstock, so I'm going to block those off too, just with my scissors. And so there is our panel. Now I have foam squares off to the side. I'm going to take a couple and put them behind each one of my flowers. Now again, when you pick these up, the leaf is going to be picked up with it. Then you can just add that back in its home. We'll do one at a time, then you can add it back in its home so you don't lose your placement. And you have a nice little dimensional background. I think this turned out so pretty, guys. I just love this. That was easy because you had the block off on the top and the side to line back up. Now I did it to all my flowers, all 5 of them, finishing off with the center here. And I think this turned out so pretty. Now it's pretty square, and then my card background is going to be pretty square, so I'm going to add a little bit of interest by rounding the corners. I'm using my corner chomper, the 1/2 inch size, and just rounding the bottom corners. It went through. I only added foam adhesive to basically the center of the flower, so I got lucky. Hindsight, maybe if you're going to do this, maybe do it while you're still figuring out the placement before you pop up those flowers. But like I said, I got lucky. I'm going to go ahead and add my sentiment to the very top on that black strip. I'm going to do some heat embossing, so I treated that black strip with my anti-static powder tool. And then we're going to ink up our smile with Versamark ink. And then I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do some heat embossing with white embossing powder. So I'll go over my smile sentiment, and then I'll heat up my heat gun and we'll melt that embossing powder, and we are good to go. Now for finishing touches, I'm going to go ahead and take some black and white baker's twine. We're going to tie a bow all the way to the right of our panel here. We're going over the seam from the black cardstock to the white, and then I did trim the tails of that. Okay, for my background, we're going to use an A2 size card base, and I'm going to keep it white. So I do want a little something extra in the background. I'm going to bring in a Altenew grid cover die. I've used this before, I love it. I'm going to die cut it out with white cardstock, and I punched out all those little squares, which are pretty neat. If you guys want to add a little confetti to something, you can keep those little squares. But I'm going to go ahead and add glue along the edge of my card front panel here and glue that down to the front of my card base. After that's adhered, we'll flip over our floral panel. I'm going to add some foam adhesive behind it. And we're going to go right over our baker's twine, kind of securing it in the background. And we'll just remove the release paper off of our foam adhesive, and this is going to fit directly center in our card base. That's why I rounded the corners of this panel, because there's a lot of squares going on here, so I wanted just a little something different. Now, last but not least, I'm going to bring in my white gel pen, and when you add polka dots to that black, it softens it a little bit, and then if there are polka dots to the black, it's going to give it a little playful look too. I kind of think it goes with the smile sentiment. So that's what we're going to do, add little dots to the center. You might have to go over it a few times because the white gel pen does lighten up a little bit. So, but love the way this looks. So this is my project today, guys, using the Altenew Mini Delight set called Smile Blooms. Again, this is part of an Instagram hop. If you want to start at the beginning, visit Altenew LLC. Details for that are over on my blog if you want to check it out. Have a great day, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.